Hello buddy, Sanir, engineer, MBA, and investor. And in today's video, I want to talk about an interview between Dave Lee and ARK Invest. And basically, this interview goes over genomics, goes over several topics of genomics, and I want to talk about it in this video and why you should watch this interview as well. So obviously, most of our viewers here know either ARK Invest or Dave Lee or both of them. Obviously, ARK invests all over genomics and many other sectors. And Dave Lee basically got popular across the board for his support, knowledge, and coverage of the company that some of you know as Tesla. So this interview here was quite interesting because Dave Lee has made a few videos on genomics. I think the last one he made was like in 2021, the interview he had with Brett, the director of ARK Invest. And they actually went really in depth with Teladoc and with some other genomics play. And that's what this interview sort of, was aimed to be. If we take a look at the bullet points here, and just as a disclosure, I did watch the interview in a 2-segment part. So I watched half of it, I think, or maybe 3/4 of it on Sunday, and then I finished it up today. So I think this interview is more geared towards sequencing rather than genomics as a whole, and I can explain that in just a second. But in terms of sequencing, they really went in depth, right? They really went in depth. But they actually, at the end of this interview, they literally spoke, it's not here, but literally the last 5 minutes of the interview, they started talking about genome editing and therapeutics, which obviously we're talking about forms of like genome editing like CRISPR, right? They literally spoke about it for less than 5 minutes. But to Dave Lee's credit, he did mention that he believes it should be another interview, right? So you can already see this interview went for 2 hours. So if you only speak about genome editing for 5 minutes, then you can probably guess that most of it was really about sequencing, right? Which is what you see in the bullet points here, right? They're talking about sequencing, why it's a hard problem, why there's different companies in the space, whether that's Specific Bio, Illumina, and so on. And they sort of talk about several technologies there, how they differ. My thoughts here is that, well, again, this interview, although they talk about both genomic stocks, I think they're more focusing on genomics sequencing stocks. Obviously, ARK Invest is big on sequencing. I mean, they've published many slides on it. The only thing I would say here, and I think here they mentioned it once, Illumina, but I haven't done this exercise. Maybe one of you will do it. If you read the transcript and you figure out how many times they mention Illumina, I felt like this whole interview was basically, trying to prove, like ARK Invest Simon trying to prove why Illumina market share will be decreasing and why its market share has peaked, and that's all history now when it comes to Illumina. I think they spent a lot of time talking about Illumina, talking about their patents, talking about their weaknesses and why companies like Pacific Bio have an advantage over Illumina, considering they have leadership. Pacific Bio, for example, have leadership that are ex-Illumina, and of course the patents are expiring for Illumina and so on. So this interview was really, really an interesting one because it's not only about talking about sequencing, it's actually, and not just the technology behind it, but actually trying to prove or trying to present enough evidence that Illumina days are numbered and that their market share is now going to be declining, and that you have other players like Nanopores or Pacific Bio coming into the scene here with a different strategy that that may end up satisfying many investors into investing in these types of companies. But to Simon's credit, he did mention that it's not like Illumina is going to go away anytime soon. Really depends about the application and what technology you can use for that particular application. Something similar to vehicles. They use that analogy there probably because Dave Lee is really involved with Tesla and basically the car market, where you don't just have SUVs, you don't just have trucks, you don't just have sedans, you have different application for different segments of the regions around the world, for different communities and cultures, depending on what your needs are, right? Your F-150 trucks will not fit in European streets, right? Just like how in Toronto, for example, you're not gonna be running those Fiat cars. You know, there are some, but you're not gonna make them majority cars like those Peugeot cars or whatever European cars that I saw in Portugal the other day. But anyways, the point here is that you have different applications here for different needs, and that's why, you know, Simon mentioned that it's not like Illumina will go away. But again, this whole podcast episode, this whole video interview felt very, very focused on proving to Dave Lee why Illumina days are numbered. And I just found that interesting. I mean, I've never seen, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I've never seen ARK Invest take a stance against a company, a particular company, right? I know they did this with Tesla and Legacy Autos, but I don't think they actually compared this much, like Tesla versus Ford, for example, or Tesla versus GM, right? I never saw that, right? This is the first time I'm seeing that. I found it interesting. I found it a different type of angle. I'm not sure if they're doing that because they're really bullish on this and they really believe it, or is it something that they're trying to, you know, make it simpler for investors? You say, you know what, you don't need to understand all these technologies. Just know that this company that owns this much market share, days are numbered, and you're going to see all these new players, you know, raising their market cap as, you know, we come out of this bear market. I'm not sure what it is. It was really an interesting interview. Very disappointed that we didn't talk that much about therapeutics. Again, we'll expect another video, but who knows, you know, in a few months, you may be in a bull market and you may have missed this opportunity. There's like a golden window of opportunity, right? And you got to remember, you know, Dave Lee doesn't, you know, influence a lot of people. So a lot of people looking at this interview will say, wow, okay, genomics, Pacific Bio, let me invest in Pacific Bio, right? And, you know, kudos to them, you know, power to them. You know, it's your financial decisions. You do whatever you want with your money. But the point here is that we had this missed opportunity here to talk about genome editing, talk about human therapeutics, talk about CRISPR versus zinc, CRISPR versus talons, and so on. So it is what it is, guys. We'll end this video like this. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Wanted to cover this interview, give my thoughts here. I think it's always important to see what's going on in the landscape, and highly recommend you guys to watch this interview, especially if you're into sequencing or genomics as a whole. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Like this video if you found value, subscribe if you're not, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.